Throughout the race for Massachusetts Governor, Charlie Baker has been saying he hopes to win 100% of the vote. If that attitude is unrealistic, it's also helped Baker make inroads in a constituency that's usually considered a lost cause for Republicans. WGBH News reporter Adam Riley has more.
And I asked him who he was going to vote for.
At the Bay State banner, Yabu Miller has been observing white politicians woo African-American voters for years. The last time Charlie Baker ran for governor, Miller says his efforts were underwhelming. But this year, it's different.
What he's done is he's showed up, and that's big in that I don't think we've seen this much attention from a statewide, Republican candidate ever in Massachusetts history. I mean, in the black community.
You can see it in Baker's advertisements.
Think about a better future for you and your family.
And last month, Miller snapped a photo that drove the point home. Baker dancing with abandon during a cookout in Roxbury.
There was a DJ, and they started playing My Girl. Baker was into it.
Yeah, all right, buddy.
The Urban League's Darnell Williams was in that photo. He says black voters are noticing Baker's newfound eagerness, and they approve.
From the folks that I talked to from across the Commonwealth, people were saying that he's coming across as genuine. They are seeing a side of him that they have not seen before, and it seemed to be appreciated and welcoming.
And Williams adds Baker is pitching policies that resonate with African Americans too, like lifting the cap on charter schools and helping minority businesses land public contracts.
He's been doing listening tours across the state in communities of color. He's learned from 2010. He's listening to them, and he's taking that, converting what he's heard, and putting it into policy and platform issues.
But Yabu Miller says other Baker ideas may leave black voters cold, especially his focus on welfare fraud. Here's an ad from the pro-Baker super PAC Commonwealth Future.
And Coakley still has no plan to fix welfare. Baker has a plan to crack down on welfare fraud.
Miller says that's an issue with clear racial overtones, and that with black voters, Baker downplays it.
He's not really talking about that, though, when he comes in the black community, unless he's prompted. Unless people say, what's the deal with this stuff? I mean, it's dog whistle politics. You guys are right in the neighborhood.
Yeah. That's one reason that African Americans have steered clear of the GOP. It'll be tough for Charlie Baker to change that next Tuesday, but he might just convince some black voters to think twice.
Oh.
So you actually hear the same thing in the black community about Martha Coakley.
Yes, you do.
4 years ago, she took their support for granted, sort of came in at the last minute, running against Scott Brown, say, I need your help after all. The difference, I think, is that people thought Coakley would show appreciation of them when she ran against Brown. They didn't expect this new Charlie Baker to manifest himself, and they're happy it did.
Well, basically, you're hearing that candidates in general are courting the black community in ways they never did before. They either wrote them off, figured they didn't vote, or their vote didn't matter.
Or figured it was a Democratic lock, whatever you did. Right. And, maybe this won't be decisive next Tuesday, but this could be a very close election. And if it is, this is the sort of little thing that could tilt the balance one way or another.
Okay, so a story that broke late this afternoon about Charlie Baker, that the media consortium debate last night, there was a very emotional moment when each of them was asked when they last cried. Martha Coakley said it was today because she'd been at a funeral for a close friend who died of leukemia, same as her mother. And Charlie recounted this story about a fisherman who tells a story about how his kids had scholarships to go play football, and he insisted that they be fishermen, and he says, I ruined their lives. And Charlie gets very upset when he says, turns out the story is 4 years old. He told the same story in 2009. Do you think that's significant?
I think that it is less significant if he told the story in 2009 and more significant if they try to track down this fisherman and are unable to identify him. I don't know.
Well, the Globe did try, but, that's maybe a needle in a haystack.
I actually tend to be a little sympathetic here. I would assume that when you're a candidate running for higher office that you hear an insane amount of anecdotes. I have trouble remembering, on a Monday what I did over the weekend. So I'm a little sympathetic that Baker might pull this out in the heat of a debate. But I think that, in a way, it'll probably depend on how the press treats it. If there's this sustained search, who is the fisherman? Did he ever exist? I think the more headlines like that we see over the next few days, the worse it is.
What about skepticism that you would be that emotional, having told the story so many times? Would it make you that emotional 4 years later?
Well, I think that's a fair question. I think that's a more subtle critique. Some of the emotion that we've seen from Baker has felt a little calculated to me. There was the debate here at WGBH when he said the thing that frustrates him most is that people think he only cares about numbers. And I felt like, remember when Felix Arroyo ran for mayor and was doing that, he would make his voice kind of quavery. And that always felt a little manufactured to me. I think Baker has been working at being emotional. So yeah, this could make people say, oh, I had bought this as genuine emotion until now, but he's really working at it. But I think the big thing is, do we keep hearing about how the fisherman is not out there or can't be produced?
Yeah, well, unless the fisherman himself comes forward, I think it's going to be.
Or unless it's an elaborate trap by the Baker campaign to have Coakley go too far, attack him for making it up, and then say, here's the fisherman. And, I don't think that's probably what's going on, but it'd be kind of cool if that happened.
All right, well, the fisherman may come forward. All right, stick around, Adam. Turning now to another tight race, one with national implications. The New Hampshire Senate race has incumbent Jeanne Shaheen fending off a challenge from former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown. WGBH News reporter Ron Sanders ventured north to the Granite State, where polls show the race is a dead heat.
Fresh off another campaign stop, Scott Brown jumps into his familiar green pickup, now with New Hampshire plates. He's put a lot of miles on it, crisscrossing the Granite State, trying to convince voters he's one of them just as much as the woman he's challenging, incumbent Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen. And now Brown has Shaheen looking over her shoulder in what she admits is a very tight race.
We're out everywhere we can be. This is a close election. We want everybody to go to the polls, and we're pointing out the differences between me and my opponent, Scott Brown, on the issues that matter to New Hampshire.
That's one of her main campaign themes, that New Hampshire is not a consolation prize for Brown after losing his Massachusetts Senate seat to Elizabeth Warren in 2012.
I think we need a senator who's going to put New Hampshire first, who's going to work every day for the people of this state. What we saw when Scott Brown represented Massachusetts is that he didn't support our middle-class families. He didn't support small businesses in the way that we need to.
For some voters, the accusation that Brown is a carpetbagger may have resonance, and Brown has a ready response. Have you found it a challenge to combat her attempt to paint you as an interloper from Massachusetts?
No, listen, people understand. What I love about this state is you can go into people's living rooms, go into their businesses, look them in the eye, and answer those questions, and they recognize that I actually was born here. Senator Shaheen's from Missouri. We both care about New Hampshire. We both care about the direction of New Hampshire, but we have different visions for it.
And Brown argues that his experience representing Massachusetts can also be an asset in the race.
They know what I did. They know what I'm going to do. They know what she's done and how she's been rubber stamping the president's failed policies on immigration, on ISIS, on Ebola, that confusion and incoherent policies regarding these issues. It's real.
University of New Hampshire political science professor Dante Scala says Scott Brown has worked hard on retail politics, and it shows. Professor Scala, how tight is this race?
It's close. I could easily see this race being decided by 3 percentage points or fewer. I think the winner, whether it's Brown or Shaheen, is going to wind up with 50, maybe 51% of the vote on Election Day. It's that close.
Still, this Manchester voter says Brown is out of the blue to her. But you like Jeanne Shaheen?
I do, yes.
And that's because Scott Brown is
not from here.
This Bedford voter has an opposite view.
I'm just voting out incumbents. Totally dissatisfied with the way government was run this past term.
That's the kind of voter Brown needs to connect with, says Professor Scala.
He's out there talking to voters, and he's done his best to nationalize this race and make it all about Jeanne Shaheen's ties to Barack Obama.
And that's been Brown's primary argument against Shaheen, linking her to the president's low popularity ratings.
Senator Shaheen is actually rubber stamping that 99% of the time. We deserve better.
While the outcome of the race has national implications by helping decide which party takes control of the U.S. Senate, Shaheen is hoping voters heed the words of another former Massachusetts politician: all politics is local.
This race is about who's going to work for New Hampshire, who's going to put the voters of New Hampshire first.
So, Emily, Professor Scala says he'd give the ground game advantage to Team Shaheen and her allies. Some big guns have been up in the Granite State campaigning on behalf of the different candidates. Next Gen Climate Change for her and the Americans for Prosperity group for him. Elizabeth Warren's been up there for her a couple of times, as has John McCain for Brown. So all the big guns are out, all the stops are pulled out, and this is razor thin by most accounts.
Amazing how similar it looks to both Senate races we ran here against Martha Coakley and against Elizabeth Warren. I mean, first of all, running against women, two women again, and his retail political ability is just incredible, which is what makes him so popular.
Well, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, all of the pre-election polls show this razor-thin margin or a 1 to 2 to 3 point lead. Within the past 48 hours, I think there have been several polls that show him in the lead, show her in the lead. So it's going to be a very interesting evening.
We'll be all over it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ron. All right, I'm still joined here by Adam Royley.
Still here.
So one of the things that I find interesting is Jeanne Shaheen trying to pin him as being, carpetbagger, an outsider. I mean, this is a tried and true formula. I mean, Hillary Clinton did it, for heaven's sakes, when she ran for Senate. So to pick, and he has stronger roots there than Hillary Clinton did for New York.
Yep,
frankly.
that's true. He was born there.
Yeah, he was born there and it's raised there, and he always had a house there. It's not like he just went up and bought it, So of course he moved there for the race, but I would just leave that alone if I were her.
Yeah, I mean, she is in a tough spot because President Obama is so wildly unpopular. The Democrats are extremely unpopular right now, more than in about 3 decades. The president has the lowest favorability ratings of his career. So that's a real danger for her, and she needs to find some way to push back. That's as good an attempt as any, I think, or as good an angle as any. You were talking with Ron about Scott Brown's retail political skills being incredible. I would append an asterisk to that. This Scott Brown looks like the same Scott Brown we saw run against Martha Coakley when he was running from behind, he was the underdog, and he was sort of at ease in his own skin. I think that's how he's best running, is when expectations aren't with him necessarily and he's running from behind. When he was running against Elizabeth Warren, he looked ill at ease throughout that entire campaign. Yeah, he almost seemed like he couldn't believe that he was getting a tough challenge for the seat since he just won it recently from Coakley. So I feel like this is much more the kind of race he wants to be running, which makes me think that he has a pretty good chance of succeeding.
So this is one of, 10 toss-up states? I mean, the balance of the Senate really is, contingent on this.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's a big one. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I've been assuming for a while now that President